Welcome back to the Show Me Show podcast for episode 42. Shout out to Jackie Robinson, the Jackie Robinson podcast. Today we've got our NFL rundown as well as our pick'em, our Show Me Show fantasy corner, and some little other sports tidbits that have been going around all kinds of leagues. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump on into the week 14 rundown. So we start this great week 14 slate of games in Los Angeles, where it was the Fighting Josh McDaniels visiting the sliding Los Angeles Rams. In typical Raider fashion, they got out to a pretty sizable lead, and it seemed insurmountable, especially with this Rams offense. But in a touching tribute to Raider fanatic Guy Fieri, Josh McDaniels allowed Baker Mayfield to cook up something special as he led a 14-point comeback and cooked up an 8-play, 98-yard drive that only took a minute 45. Rams get back in the win column and destroy any playoff hopes that the Raiders had as they win a thriller on Thursday Night Football, 17-16.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd do the Raiders like you did that one episode. That was amazing.
They lost. They don't really deserve it.
True. To start your NFL Sunday, we started up in beautiful Buffalo, New York. The only team in New York, by the way, where it was the Mike White-led Giants. I apologize. The Mike White-led Jets taking on the offensively struggling Buffalo Bills. In a pivotal game for both teams and the AFC East as a whole division in terms of playoff positioning, it was the weather that had something to say about how this game was going to be played. Things quickly got messy as a gross wintry mix hit this game hard, and the Jets' engines were never able to thaw out as their offense was stagnant and unsafe when Mike White was not on the field. And that happened quite often because he was absolutely attacked by the Bills' defense. And the Bills win a disgusting game with a disgusting scoreline, 20-12.
Next, we head to Cincinnati, where Joe Burrow looked to get the monkey off his back that was the Cleveland Browns on Harambe Remembrance Night. And get the monkey off his back he did, as some late offensive success was able to propel the Bengals past the creep-led Browns. Deshaun Watson continues to look for success, but he just couldn't get it going today, as he found himself in the fetal massage position multiple times today, with no one to aid his needs. Bengals win 23-10.
But now, over to the These Guys Get Played to Play Football 2 game of the week, as the Texans came into Jerry World as 17-point underdogs, where it was the 9-3 Dallas Cowboys playing host to the lowly Jeff Driscoll-led Texans in the battle for the state. The Texans were able to hold down the fort for most of the game, but in a touching tribute to the Battle of the Alamo, it was the Cowboys who recaptured the game in the final moments, defeating Davy Crockett Mills and the Texans once and for all. Cowboys come back and win this one close, 27-23. And let me remind you, Cam, good teams win, great teams cover.
Absolutely. Next, we head to the Motor City, where it was the 5-7 Fighting Dan Campbells playing host to hated divisional rival Minnesota. This one ended up being a great quarterback matchup, as Kirk Cousins had one of his better games of the season, throwing for over 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. But it was Jared Goff and the big nuts of Dan Campbell that got the job done, throwing a pass to Penei Sewell with the game on the line to seal it and send the Vikings back home losers. Skull, what? Fuck you. Lions win 34-23.
Touching Coach O reference there. Next, we head down to Nashville, where it was the Tits and the Jags looking to have some fun down on Broadway. Don't slur your words on that one. And what looked like another Derrick Henry runaway train game, as the King had 98 rushing yards in the first quarter, quickly turned into a disaster for Vrabel's secondary, as they could not stop Trevor Lawrence and that Jaguars passing attack, as Lawrence found Evan Ingram for 2 touchdowns, and Zay would you look at that, Jones, The Jaguars have the chance to make a real playoff push here late in the season. Duval gets one on the road in Nashville as they move to 5-8 with a 36-22 win. Very close to a scoregami.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It was close. 36-23 would have been it. Next, we head to very bright and cold Meadowlands, where the Giants look to get back to their winning ways against conference foe Philadelphia. But the Eagles and MVP leading candidate Jalen Hurts quickly jumped out to a 21-0 lead in the first half. And if you know anything about these Giants, Luke, they are not able to fight an uphill battle, unlike the legendary warrior David, who upset Goliath all those years ago in a fight where Goliath was heavily favored at home. But like I said, the Giants are no David, and the Eagles flew to an easy 48-22 victory. And it is with great pleasure that I would like to announce that the Eagles are the first team in the 2023 playoffs. Go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Next, we head to the Steel City, where we had another great divisional matchup. Weird term to use for this game, but between the Steelers and the Ravens, where you always toss out the record books when these two get together. The game quickly became cursed as both starters had to leave the game early due to injury. And for Steelers fans, it quickly became Trubiscoat season. But in typical Mitch fashion, he threw 3 interceptions to that very good Ravens defense. And the former Duck, Anthony Brown, did just enough to secure the victory late in the game. You know what they say. You don't become a Raven until you beat the Steelers. Well, a lot of players got their feathers today as the Ravens beat the Steelers on the road in an ugly game, 16-14.
Next, we head out west to the Rocky Mountains, where it was Mr. Unlimited versus Patrick 9-0 against the Broncos Mahomes. It was all Chiefs early on. In fact, this game looked like it was heading for Blowout City. But this game drove right past Blowout City as the Broncos offense came alive, and Russell Wilson threw for 3 touchdowns in 3 minutes and 24 seconds, getting the Broncos right back in the game. But it just wasn't meant to be, as in a touching tribute to the GOAT Tom Brady, Mahomes willed his defense into knocking out Wilson cold, and Brett Rypien was no hero today as the Chiefs escaped Denver and moved to 10-0 in the Mahomes era against their divisional rival as they win 34-28.
Now we head to the beautiful San Francisco, where it was Big Cock Brock and that awesome 49ers defense took the field against the visiting hometown legend Tom Brady. This one got out of control pretty fast as Mr. Irrelevant himself kept making plays against the proven Buccaneers defense, leading them to a 28-0 halftime lead. And from that point on, it was all mop-up duty for the 49ers squad as they sent the GOAT back home packing 35-7. Don't look now, but the 49ers are having some serious team of destiny vibes surrounding them as we head down the stretch of this NFL season.
Staying on the West Coast, we land in beautiful, rainy Seattle, where it was the Fighting Steve Wilkes taking on the sliding Seattle Seahawks. And what should have been a must-win for the Seahawks due to the tragic passing of Turf the dog, the team simply did not avenge their beloved good boy's death, as they allowed Turf to die in vain. In fact, many people are starting to ask the question, did the Seahawks players even love Turf? A tough situation for sure, as the Panthers get their 5th win of the season and win this one 30-24.
Sit 'em, the Seahawks. And to end our Sunday, we go back to the place where Week 14 all started. Beautiful SoFi Stadium, which not only hosted this game between the Chargers and Dolphins, but will also host many World Cup matches in 2026. This was the battle of 2020 QB draft class as both first-round picks, back-to-back picks, by the way, went head-to-head. But this game simply belonged to Justin Herbert, as he had one of the better passing games of his career. And for Tuanon, well, they spent the evening covering up Tua's hide. As he struggled with accuracy. Sorry for a stroke there. And the Dolphins' offense struggled tremendously. But at the end of the day, the Finns still had a chance late as this one came down to an onside kick. And in a touching tribute to Mike Leach, may he rest in peace, And his famous quote, "Kick it to the fat dude," the Dolphins were almost able to recover the onside kick. But after review, the Chargers were able to cover up the pigskin. The San Diego Superchargers win this one, 23-17.
And we ended the weekend in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, where it was an injury-plagued first half that really played a big impact on this one, Luke, as both the Patriots and Cardinals lost key players early on, including franchise quarterback Kyler Murray, as it looks like he may have suffered a season-ending knee injury, which has been confirmed as of today. But the Kingsbury Soldiers led early on as General Colt McCoy threw a passing touchdown early, and Private James Conner powered his way in for a score. But in the locker rooms at halftime, a mystery man by the name of P. Revere stormed into the locker room and warned the Patriots that the Redcoats were coming, which was just the wake-up call that Sir McCorkle Jones needed to lead his troops to victory in the second half. Powered by a vicious Patriots defense, Pats win this one on the road in prime time, 27-13. And that is week 14 in the NFL. So, pretty...
It was a good
interesting storylines, and was some pretty good games when a slate on paper that looked pretty meh and meek, but some pretty good games, some notable ones, some notable surprises was probably that Jacksonville win against Tennessee. The Texans covering. Back. The Texans covering was a big one.
They almost won.
Yeah, they almost did win. The San Fran Tom Brady game, I mean, I remember in the pick'em last week, I was like, I really don't know, but San Fran's at home, so I'm going to take them. And I was completely wrong, even though I had the game right. I mean, San Francisco just pummeled them. Brock Purdy looked competent, although he is questionable for tonight. So, believe it or not, we are actually recording this a good hour 15 before the game, so we have no idea what's going to happen. We'll get to that in the picks a little bit later, but yeah, some interesting games. Where do you want to start, Luke?
Where do I want to start? That is a great question. I want to start in probably the biggest headline story of the week. Everyone's talking about it, and last week, during the pick'em, you said, Luke, I don't know about this one, and I affirmed it. We both agreed to pick the Detroit Lions over the Minnesota Vikings. And look at that. What did I say a few weeks ago? That towards the end of the year, people were going to talk about the Lions making the playoffs. That's all I said. I didn't say they were going to make the playoffs. I said people will be talking. And look, we are having that conversation with 4 weeks left. People are talking. The Lions about them making the playoffs. Huge win over Minnesota. They're a good team. They got the Jets this week. It's a huge test. Could be a trap game. Huge trap game vibes from this game, but it's either them or the Packers that are getting into the playoffs. I'm going to say that right now, very confidently.
Yeah, and you bring up this week's matchup against the Jets, and honestly, I think I'm going to take the Lions because it seems like as of late, they're winning the close games, and the Jets have forgotten how to win the close games. You know what I mean? You know how we always talk about how, hell, even a couple weeks ago, I said the Lions and the Falcons, they're just in that camp that they just don't know how to win close games. Well, the past couple of weeks, Lions have won close games, so maybe they're starting to learn. And I think this one will be a close game.
I don't know. Something had to happen, though, because the Lions, as we all know, are cursed. The city of Detroit is cursed. And for some reason, at the end of every game, something would go wrong. At the end of every season, something would go wrong. And the last few weeks, they've just been having balls go their way. They've been having some weather go their way. They've just been having things go their way and fall into place to help them win the game. That has never happened in the history of the Detroit Lions in my lifetime. So this is something that maybe the tides are turning. Maybe they paid Calvin Johnson and we didn't know about it. But yeah, it's a storyline for sure. And they're 1 game out of the playoffs now? So 1.5 maybe.
They're firmly in the hunt for the rest of the season.
Yes.
Their problem is so like if they win out, they'll be 10-7, right?
They went out with 10-7.
Which should be enough with how much, like we mentioned in the rundown, Seahawks are sliding, Giants are sliding. The only team that's kind of stayed firm a little bit is the football team, Commanders, who I don't know.
They're in the right direction.
I'm not really sure. I'm going to check our pick'em here, see who the football team Commanders has this week. Giants. Okay, at home. Football. Okay, so that's 2 games in a row for them. So that's beautiful. I love division football at the end of the year. They are just unders, Luke. I mean, it's just defensive football.
That's a great point.
I think we're going to take the Commanders there. I hope we are.
Yeah, but anyway, the Lions, they're heading in the right direction. And you said 10 wins. If they went out, that should be enough. I guarantee you that will be enough. I think if they could even lose a game, they could go 9-8, and I think that they will still be safely in the playoffs.
So we're looking at what?
I can guarantee right now.
4 games left, right? 4 games left.
I guarantee there's going to be a 9-win team in the playoffs. And maybe even an 8-win team. Maybe multiple 9-win teams, but at least one. That's just how the NFC is going to play out.
Luke, can you remind me, did the Lions beat the Seahawks head-to-head?
I believe so.
Okay, so that's big because Seahawks are what? They're 7-6.
I apologize. The Seahawks beat the Lions 48-45. If you remember that shootout.
Oh no, that's bad, Luke. I'll tell you that right now. That is bad because
week 4,
Seahawks have a chance to finish 2-2, which would put them at 9-8. And the Lions would have to win out to get to 10-7. And like you said, they have the possibility to where they can lose a game and probably still get in, and maybe still get in. But that would also put them at 9-8, and that would give the Seahawks the edge over them. So that would suck.
Here's the thing, though. I don't know if the Seahawks win 2 games. They got the 49ers tonight, and we know how good the 49ers have been playing. Next week, they got the Chiefs. We know, I mean, that's self-explanatory. That's Patrick Mahomes. And then they finish with the Jets and Rams. And the Jets have been playing.
The Jets game at home?
Yeah. They're both at home, both those 2 games.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's possible for sure. I'm not saying it's not possible, but they pretty much have to win those 2 games at the end of the year to, I guess secure their spot. Because we're going to be looking at a scenario in 2 weeks where the Seahawks have a losing record. So
yeah,
the Lions could have
crazy, but yeah.
Because the Seahawks,
and then
there's going to be 2 East teams there as well.
2-2. I think they can go 2-2. And honestly, Luke, it may not be they might not lose both to the 49ers and Chiefs because they're just a weird team. They might steal one of those games and then drop an easy one to the Rams. I could definitely see that too. You know what I mean? Just lose to the 49ers, win a weird game against the Chiefs, maybe, and then lose to the Rams and beat the Jets. I could see some weird stuff like that happening. Which, one thing
it's been a weird season too.
Oh, yeah, but the Seahawks, they have just been weird the whole year. I mean, think about it, at the beginning of the season, we had to cope with the fact that they were a competent team. Think about how weird that was when we were expecting them to have – I see it I've really – and that's just the NFL for you, any given Sunday. We did a pretty bad job predicting who was going to have the number 1 pick. I was for sure that Daniel Jones was just pretty much dead, And I had the Giants having the first pick. And I think I had the Texans right there too. So, I mean, everybody probably had the Texans in the top 3 picks. But Seahawks were right there for me as well. I was like, we have to watch a full year of Drew Lock again. So I didn't even think Geno was going to win the job. So I took that into factor as well. They're nowhere even close to that pick status. So, although they're not super far away from it either via the Broncos pick, right?
I could look up Tankathon right now. I would imagine they're not very far.
Let's take a look at Tankathon.
It's got to be top 5. I think it's second. Yes. So right now, as it stands, if the season ended today, the Seahawks would be, I do believe, the 7th seed in the playoffs, and they'd also have the number 2 overall.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I see it. I can't believe Denver's 3-10. That is insane.
That's ugly. That's an ugly looking record.
They're
eliminated from the playoffs with 4 weeks to go, and they don't have their first round pick. That's
inexcusable.
That's a terrible feeling.
I agree.
Yeah, and then it's Chicago, and then at 4 you have the Rams, whose pick goes to Detroit, who we're also just talking about in that conversation to make the playoffs. Seattle or Detroit, one of them is going to make the playoffs and have a top 5 pick. Like that's cool. And then right behind them you have the Saints, who their pick is going to the Eagles, who very well could be in the Super Bowl. They could be in the Super Bowl and have a top 5 pick. Like that's stupid. That's something I would do in Madden. And then you have Arizona, Indianapolis, Vegas, the Panthers, and the Falcons to round out the top 10. So it's a weird looking draft. The Panthers I had up there. Also, as you're talking about the top picks in the draft at the beginning of the year, I had those 3 teams, and then also the Panthers were up there too for me. I thought they were going to be a lot worse. They're actually not bad. Like I'm not going to say they're a good, like the Lions. I'll say they're a good team. The Panthers are not a good team, but they're not bad.
I'll say this about
that. Like their defense is good.
Yeah, I'll say this about Carolina. They are winning too many games in terms of wanting to draft Bryce Young. I'll say that. That's my nice thing about Carolina.
I think it's too late for Bryce Young for them.
Yep, I agree.
Not only do they have too many games, they have a lot going in their favor.
I just wonder who Houston.
I think the dream is dead for that.
Who do you think Houston's going to take? I've seen that they really like Stroud. You know,
I think they'll take Stroud, but then you have Seattle. You got to get ahead. You got Detroit. You have Indianapolis, who's ahead of you. They're definitely going to. They would 100% take Bryce Young if he's there.
I don't know.
That's a problem for Carolina.
Yeah, they would. They're so bad at the quarterback position. I don't know if Seattle's going to draft a quarterback anymore. Right?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. It'll be talked about before.
I don't think
draft,
they know what they're going to do.
What I'm here to talk about, what I'm here to talk about is the NFC South. That is just an absolutely wild division. And there is a high possibility that we are sitting here next week and the Panthers are in the playoffs. Because the Panthers, who do they play this week? Is it the Steelers? Yes. The Panthers play the Steelers in Carolina. And the Bucs have to play Joey Burrow and the Bengals.
So that would make Tom Brady's team 6-8, and the Panthers would move to 6-8 as well if they win. And they have the head-to-head against the Buccaneers. So yeah, you're right. That would put them atop.
With 3 weeks to go, the first place Panthers. Who would have thought? That doesn't make any sense.
Well,
that hurts my brain.
Nobody expected that division to be absolute hell. I mean, this is seriously, when we used to make fun of the true NFC beast from a few years ago, when we just knew that one of them was going to be well below 500, which the football team was, and still get into the playoffs. I mean, this is the same boat this year, which it really is kind of a sham when you think about it. I mean, a hot team like the Lions is going to get left out over somebody like Well, then again, you can't really complain if like Carolina, climbs their way into the playoff because they're fighting down the stretch. But you're looking at a team that doesn't have a
You're talking
great
about the Bucs.
quarterback. I'm talking about if the Panthers crawl their way into the playoffs, the different teams that are not going to be able to make it because of them is just a sham. It really is. But the division system, I don't hate it. I actually think it works most of the time. It's just like weird years like this where it doesn't work its magic. And that's another thing, like the Lions, they're having some of the best quarterback play that they've had since some of the Golden Stafford years. And that's just another thing. Like, what are they going to do in the draft, too? I mean, we'll get to draft talk, I guess, in a couple months. But, I mean, you got to think about that. I mean, Jared Goff is playing his balls off right now. I mean, this is way better than at any time he really ever played in L.A. And he's playing better than he did last year as a Lion. I mean, last year they had probable cause for picking somebody in the draft. They really did. So, but this year, I mean, they really don't have that as much because Jared Goff is still young. And he's not like Jared Goff is a tough, what, and he doesn't really get hurt too often, knock on wood, but he really doesn't. So that's another tough situation where the Lions are going to go in the draft. Maybe they'll just continue to bulk up on the front seven or on the offensive line, but who knows?
Yeah, this is going to be a weird draft, though, because
good draft, but weird.
4 teams in the top 12. 4 teams in the top 12 that don't have their own pick. 3 in the top 5 that don't have their own pick. So that is going to be a talking. That's something I don't think we've ever seen before.
Oh, and
that is.
We saw this a few years ago with the Saints, but the Dolphins don't have their pick for what they did.
Yeah, that's true. So there's going to be 31 first-round picks.
Yeah, which kind of sucks.
That's just weird.
Because then somebody's getting left out of some money, but
yeah, somebody gets shafted.
Okay. Yeah. Also, the Seahawks didn't avenge Turf the dog. The Seahawks dog died, and they just let him down, which is sad. Also, I think we need to talk about San Francisco in terms of their playoff push. It looks like Brock Purdy is more than competent enough, Luke, to do at least the same stuff Jimmy G was able to do. So, I mean, you take that into account, they can probably make a deep run. I'm not going to sit here and say that because I don't even think he had a single passing yard in the second half. I know they kind of called off the dogs, but that game was like literally not on red zone in the second half because I don't think he threw the ball in the second half. So, and they still said he's hurt. They said he has like an oblique injury and I think hamstring. So who knows if he's going to even play, but he kind of looks like another.
They said he's playing. He's starting.
He is playing? Okay.
He does. Yeah, he is. He's starting and stuff. I think he's pretty much healthy. He just had a little bit he got banged up, I guess, which is good for them because they would have to be starting Josh Johnson. But I would imagine
journeyman.
They didn't get the opportunity to get Baker Mayfield. So
they didn't want him.
I mean, the 49ers.
They didn't want him.
The whole NFC.
Did you see that? They didn't even want him. He was on the waivers, and the Rams were the only team that put in a claim for him.
Well, I mean, the Rams had a higher.
Yeah, I know,
higher waiver claim.
They didn't even try though. So usually there's an order.
I did
of
not
it.
See that, but interesting. Well, I was going to say the NFC is just a really, really weird conference, and the Eagles are obviously the best team.
Mm-hmm.
But I just get vibes with the Eagles that they're going to have a playoff meltdown. Like with Sirianni, Sirianni's a great coach. I'm just getting I don't even know how to describe it. I can't name a reason why. They're a good team. They don't really have a lot of holes. They're going to break down in the playoffs. It'll probably be in the championship game. Something is going to go wrong, almost like it did in Monday night against the Commanders that one week. And they're just going to break down. The Vikings, we all know their issues. They literally have a negative point differential. The Niners, they have a third-string rookie quarterback drafted in the 7th round. That's their issue. The Buccaneers, they have many, many issues. The Cowboys, their issue is that they're the Cowboys, and they haven't won anything since the 90s. And then you have the Commanders and Giants, who haven't been good. And I mean, the Giants probably won't make the playoffs. That's my prediction. And then you have the Seahawks, who were projected to be, the whole NFC is just wide open. Obviously, the Eagles are the team to beat. They're probably the favorite. If I had to pick a team right now, man, to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, I'll go with the 49ers. Just because they're just playing as a team. They're just due. And I don't know. They, like you said in the rundown, they're giving off Team of Destiny vibes.
They really, and the only reason why I threw that in there in the rundown is because I kind of truly believe it, because it's like, no matter the quarterback that they're throwing in there, they're winning, They got to win with Trey Lance, I think, at least just one game, but then Jimmy G comes in and starts winning all these games. Now Brock Purdy has won 2 games that he's played in. They're just winning with all the which, honestly, Luke, this really just goes to show how Kyle Shanahan is so smart. He can, work with that just about any quarterback as long as they have a little bit of mobility and knowledge of their offense, that he can pretty much work with just about anything in terms of scheme and plays. But they really are giving off teams of destiny. Now, personally, I understand what you're saying about like how you just expect some kind of blunder from the Eagles, because I used to get that same vibe for the Steelers when they had the 3 Bs back in the day. And I was always right. They always had one, whether it was the Jaguars or the inevitability of having to play the Patriots or the Broncos. You just never felt like they were for sure going to win the Super Bowl. But honestly, the Eagles, them and the Cowboys, to me, are probably the 2 most complete. And they're from the same division. So personally, my NFC power rankings would probably be Eagles, Cowboys, 49ers. And
then the Vikings.
Honestly, yeah, I guess I would put them at 4. But I get what you're saying about expecting a blunder from the Eagles in the playoffs, but I don't have the same vibe as you for some reason about them right now. Their only loss is to the football team on Monday Night Football in a weird game that, honestly, at the end, even after all the mistakes that they made, they had a chance to win and probably could have won if it wasn't for that weird Taylor Heineke drew that flag on that weird sack thing. But they have just been dominant. They can run the ball and throw it so effectively. Like, nobody's been able to stop both, even in that Commanders game. So that's the reason I would love to see a 49ers-Eagles matchup.
Me too.
And,
that's got to be, that has to be the NFC Championship.
That's what I would really love to see, even though I think it would actually be end up being like a 20-17 final score, somewhere around there. But also, this is the best I think the Cowboys have been since maybe Dak and Zeke's rookie year. I don't know if they've been as good since that year. That was also the year they had prime Des Bryant. So
I think they're better.
Makes you remember. Yeah, I do. I agree. I think they're better this year than back then.
I was thinking about this the other day. Like, they have a great defense. Their defensive line is just full of dogs.
Oh my gosh, they're so brutal. You can't. It's so hard to block them. Yeah. It's not just Parsons. Parsons literally tears up a full side of an offensive line. Like, literally, when you watch him, he is literally just wrecking shit, which is an ode to Aaron Donald, because that is what Aaron Donald did, except he would do it straight up the middle for years and years. Micah Parsons is doing it to a complete side, so that's incredible. But they also have DeMarcus Lawrence, right? And he is also tearing stuff up. So, yeah, I mean, their defense is looking really good. They have a guy who gets burnt sometimes, but also gets a lot of interceptions, which is important in terms of turnover differential. And they also have some other good players in the secondary. So I don't know. This might be their best team.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just DeMarcus Lawrence, but you got the guy whose last name starts with an O. I can't think of him. You got Armstrong. You got Dante Fowler. Those guys have been tearing it up, too, at the defensive line. And then, obviously, with the secondary, with Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown, those guys are going – they're dogs. Their defense is top 5 in the league. It's amazing. And then you look at their offense. They have a 2 running back system, 2 really good running backs. That's something that every championship team needs. Their wide receiver core is not fantastic, but it's solid. You know, they got a clear wide receiver 1. They got Michael Gallup, and then they just signed T.Y. Hilton too, so they got that veteran presence. And then their offensive line has played really, really good this year. But the only thing that is holding me back is, one, the Cowboys. Ever since the 90s, they just choke in the playoffs. It's just what they do. So I'm not going to believe in them just simply based off that. It's like the Mets. You know, you want to stay away from any playoff success, no matter how good they are. And also Dak Prescott. He is not good. Like, he's not like a bad quarterback by any means, but when I'm thinking about a guy that's like going to go out and lead a team to a Super Bowl, I do not think of Dak Prescott. I think of somebody who is not that good. He's going to blunder in the playoffs. He's going to do some just dumb shit and mess it up, and the Cowboys are going to lose. That's what's going to happen. Inevitable. The Cowboys are really good. They got a really, really good team, but Dak Prescott he's not the guy. So,
yeah, and one other thing to note about that is how you just said how Dak's been not very good lately. He throws like the most interceptions in the second quarter. And if they have to play the Eagles, I think in week 16, is it?
Oh boy.
Something like that. Eagles are the best second quarter team. So if you do some simple math, Luke, you have a guy who throws a bunch of interceptions in the second quarter and a team that scores a lot of points in the second quarter. They're going to get to see that here in the regular season, but you also might have to see that again in the playoffs because the Cowboys are going to be a wild card team. So unless they beat the Eagles, then they kind of control. Oh, wait, no. They don't control their own destiny because the Cowboys have 3 losses. So Eagles can afford one blunder. So, but if they have 2 blunders, then they're really. But also, I don't know. I mean, because even the 49ers, they went right into Jerry World last year and got a victory. So, you know. Like it all comes back to kind of what you're saying. You know, do you really want to put your faith in the Cowboys? Do you want to put your faith in fat Mike McCarthy, who just when he sees a time clock, he just has like a mental stroke? Do you want to? Because also, if you think about it, if Jerry Jones wins the Super Bowl, he's probably just going to fall over and die. I don't know if he's ready to die yet.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to factor in. What else? Just the fact of, like you said, they just haven't won anything in well over 25 years since we've been alive, and well before since we've been alive. Add about 10 years onto it. Well, almost about 7 years, I guess. But so I understand not. Maybe this could be like if the Cowboys finally break through this year, then you might be able to trust them again. But until they do, probably can't. And it's funny we spend all this time talking about the NFC and how it's just all up in the air. In the AFC, it's up in the air. It's a completely different story though. Like you just have 3
like they're all
unbelievably awesome quarterbacks right now. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, even though Josh Allen's kind of struggling right now. But you really just...
You know, the funny part about that is you listed those three guys, and I agree. Yeah, but look at the other. You still have Lamar Jackson and Tua that are going to be in the playoffs.
Herbert too. Herbert they're in the playoffs right now.
Maybe
could finally be his moment.
Right there. So you just got some dogs in the AFC. It's just a completely different story. And I'm looking at it right now. And obviously the AFC North battle between the Bengals and the Ravens is taking place. And I'm just thinking, is it better for the team to finish second? Because you get to play the Titans in the first round instead of the Dolphins.
Yeah. Ravens-Titans has always been a really heated matchup, whether it's the playoffs or regular season. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. I know you just said, would you rather play the Titans? Because I understand where you're coming from, because they are sucking right now. But maybe we'll talk about this here in a second, but about the Jags possibly backdooring their way in. But Titans and Ravens is always a super physical, close game, because it's just two teams that want to run the ball. So if you're the Ravens, do you want to get into a total and utter fist fight in your first playoff matchup? Is that what you want to do? I mean, that's your MO, but also do you want to get that banged up in your first playoff matchup? So you might as well just try and win it, honestly, and have the Bengals have to have that fist fight in a phone booth type of game. Although the Bengals will try and throw it all over them, which they'll be able to do, which I think we should just talk about Trevor Lawrence this last week. He just zipped the ball all over the place against the Titans secondary, and Mike Vrabel's team didn't know what hit him, because they tried to run the Jags defense over with Henry in the first half, which they were pretty successful in the first quarter, but after that, Trevor Lawrence just took over. So Titans secondary, Titans in general are just falling off a cliff right now. And many people say they won the NFC South in like week 4 or 5. But, Luke, the Jaguars, they win out. Now, they have like one of the toughest schedules to try and win out. But they're playing pretty good.
Here's the thing about the the Titans and the Jaguars. They have the same exact schedule except for one game. Like, they both play the Cowboys in their own home stadiums. They both play the Texans on the road, I do believe. And then the last game of the year, they play each other. Now, the only difference between these two teams is, I'm trying to look it up right now, but one of them plays the Jets, and the other one plays like the Titans have an easier
Jaguars play the Jets. The Jaguars play the Jets. I don't know who the Titans final.
Jags play the Jets. It's the Chargers this week in LA.
So they'll probably get. I'm not going to say they're going to get boat race, because the Chargers don't boat race anybody, but probably throw it over that secondary.
So, what needs to happen is, I assume they both beat the Texans. Now, Jaguars beating the Texans, that has had its problems in the last few years, but I assume they both beat the Texans. I assume they both lose to the Cowboys. So if the Titans were to lose this week, which I think they will, and if the Jaguars were to beat the Jets next week on Thursday Night Football, this time next week they will be playing. Very important matchup. If they were to win that game, it comes down to the last game of the season. That's wild.
That's tough for
That's all that has to happen.
Tough for the Titans, because then you're playing 2 playoff games in a row. You know, we always talk about how in college football, really for a lot of teams, if you're not named Georgia and like Michigan right now, you know, from like week 10 on, you're playing playoff games, because if you don't win, you're probably just out of the playoffs, you know. So, but it'll be like that and that's what you really root for as an NFL fan too, is for it to come down to the wire, because remember how we were talking about the Seahawks Final 4 games as well? It's probably going to come down to the last week too for them, because they have a rigorous schedule. And then that's the same for the
The
Lions.
same thing.
I could also see the Lions losing a game and winning the rest. And, the Seahawks will like win in a weird way in their last game or so. And the Lions are just going to be crying, the whole city, just back to regular Lions fandom, just total and utter sadness. So if I were them, I would maybe
totally
prepare for that, for this roller coaster to come to a screeching halt. But that's what you root for as a fan, is for it to come down to these last few weeks. So I'm sad that there's only 4 weeks left. But we're off school for all the regular season, so that's...
Yeah, I know. It's nice. Winter break has started for us.
And I think we're off during Super Wild Card Weekend, which has become my favorite football weekend. So,
and I don't know. Neither of our teams appear to be playing. The Packers, they have an outside chance. I was looking at it throughout the day on Sunday as results were happening, as the Seahawks lost, as the Giants lost, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, if we win out, I'm in that scenario where if we win out, then this could happen.
Yeah, you're right.
But our schedule is actually not that hard.
Nope, so it's not.
It's actually entirely possible. We play the Rams at home this week. That should be a win. The Rams are terrible, and if the Packers have any hope of doing anything this year, they have to win that game. The toughest test is going to be in Miami on Christmas.
Yeah.
And then if we somehow miraculously win that game, which the Dolphins are heading in a bad direction right now. They've lost 2 tough games in a row, and they played Buffalo this week. So they could be stumbling into that game. So we may hit them at the right time. And then obviously the Vikings and Lions at home in back-to-back weeks. Anything can happen in those. So who knows? It's possible.
Yeah, I'll say this, Luke. I will be right there with you, rooting hard for Aaron Rodgers to bring out some of his old Rodgers tricks and Rodgers magic to try and wheel them into the playoffs. Because like I said, during the middle of the season, I'm like, I really am starting to think that it might not be Tom Brady's last ride. He's thinking about playing one more season, and I think Rodgers is going to play another season too. But I think we're getting to the point, as crazy as it might be, that Rodgers is our only hope in terms of having just a GOAT playing in the playoffs, if you know what I mean. So, because Tom Brady's team is they're just falling off a cliff. So, the Packers have an uphill climb, but they have a chance. And would you say that I think they're playing their best football right now? They might be a little. I think Monday night, Luke, is going to be really, really disgusting because the Packers haven't played in a while. It's been a while. It's going to be like 14 or 15 days since their last time that they've played a National Football League game. And you're playing against Baker Mayfield, who doesn't know the offense. He has to. I don't know if you watched it. Well, we were recording, but he just had the play sheet on his wrist with highlighted plays that he could just read.
I bet you he knows by that time, though. He's had like a week and a half to prepare for it. I bet you he knows.
He will know some of it, but they say it takes like a couple of months to get that stuff all down. And I don't know if they played an excerpt from that John Wolford listens to in his car on the way to work, of like how long the plays are, and they are just ridiculously long, which I don't know why you would do that, especially with a new quarterback. Maybe dumb it down a little bit, maybe take out some words that maybe don't mean as much but as long as your players still know what they're doing. But yeah, I'm just saying, I hope if I want to go in the playoffs, I'd rather it be Aaron Rodgers. And he wouldn't have to play Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He can get mauled by
I'm going to leave this closing. I'm going to leave this closing remark here. If the I know we need some help from other teams, but if the Packers win out, and finish 9-8, I guarantee you we will be in the playoffs. And if it comes down to the last game of the season, Packers versus Lions, and the winner goes to the playoffs, I will not be giving up. Some people will be willing to give up their spot for the Lions.
No,
not me.
Don't do
not
it.
Me.
No.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
You can't do that. That's, as fun as the Lions story is, Luke, they're a division rival.
Exactly.
So you can't do that. So,
and hey, if they're the team that goes and the Packers aren't, they will have my full support. But until that happens, it's Packers. So
it is.
Yeah. And that is.
Yeah, that's our recap.
Yeah.
But
long recap, but
it is funny to remember back to when we were just talking about, well, Packers, they could get Bryce Young, maybe. They've won too many games now. They're kind of in the situation of like the Panthers. So
yes. Yep. That's exactly where I am as a fan. And I guess we better get into the fantasy corner here before it gets too late. And I guess the reason why we ran a little bit late with that is because we don't really have any questions. The only question that we had was from me. And it was literally just to spark a talking point, because this is something we have to talk about as a sports show that talks a lot about football. Do we have the question, Cam? Word for word.
The question was, what is your favorite Mike Leach moment? Rip.
Yeah. So yeah, rest in peace to Mike Leach. Great legend of a college football coach. He went to some schools that have been historically bad at football, turned them around. He has Mississippi State ranked right now and in a very good bowl game. It's a New Year's Six bowl, I do believe.
No, they're playing in the Reliant Quest Bowl.
Oh,
not New Year's.
But it's it's January 2nd. The January 2nd bowls are big ones.
It's still a good bowl. I'm just saying it's not a New Year's Six.
But yeah, that makes sense. A very good spot. He left their program in a good spot. And he's just an all-time good coach. And he's just a good guy in general. And I mean, the news of his death was just so sudden. I was just sitting here Sunday night finishing up some schoolwork, and it was like Mike Leach has been hospitalized and it's not looking good. And I'm like, oh boy, something bad happened. And then the next day I woke up and it's Mike Leach passes away. And it was just so sudden. It was 3 days ago, he was just perfectly fine. And now he's dead. It just goes to show how precious life is. And I don't want to get too deep here, but I mean, it just shows that every day matters, and you never know what tomorrow's going to bring and who's going to be there with you, or if you're going to be there, and just to take every day with pride and joy, and try to do the best that you can, and just tell everyone that you love them. So, because you never know when they're going to go. So
yeah,
but yeah, he was.
It sucks, because Mike Leach, he's one of my, we talk about football guys a lot. He's one of my favorite football guys, because he's a football mastermind. If you think about it, his coaching tree they lead some of the most high flying passing offenses. He's really one of the key figures of why we're in this era called, the passing era. When people complain about comparing quarterback eras, well, Mike Leach is honestly one of the reasons why we're in this passing era and not this greater mix of running pass. It's just so pass heavy. Yeah. We're talking about Lincoln Riley. We're talking about a coach who's in the college football playoffs, Sonny Dykes. We're talking about NFL coaches, Cliff Kingsbury, multiple other head coaches from his coaching tree. But it's not just that. As we said, the question was, what is your favorite Mike Leach moment? And I think he has so many of these funny just radio bits and interview bits of, where the reporters feel so at ease to ask him questions not related to football that just makes your day. And he's he just loves answering those more than, football. I think maybe my favorite football guy moment it came this year, was when his wide receivers, and they run the air raid. So the wide receiver position is very important. And they were sucking and not blocking for their running backs. And Mike Leach just went over to the wide receivers' chairs on the sideline and just picked them all up and folded them and sat them down on the ground so his wide receivers could sit down on the sidelines. That is definitely one of my favorite Mike Leach moments. Also, just his tirades about candy corn, hating candy corn.
Those are funny.
He had some great ones too at Washington State as well. And maybe the best football story is the one
Oklahoma?
where, yes, the one at Oklahoma where
that was my favorite moment. I was going to say that.
The one where he leaves the fake play call sheet, the fake script for the beginning of the game that had Texas all messed up in the Red River rivalry, to where Oklahoma was able to jump out to a 17-point lead because Texas was trying to scheme around this fake play call sheet that one of the players
story is just
left on the ground.
Wild. Like, the fact that he even had the idea. He even took the time to made the real play script, and then he made additional time. And he put the additional time in to make a fake one. And not only that, but that the fake one would line up and it would basically be like the opposite of the real one. So, and then he told a player to basically fake drop it. The whole thing is just wild. And I mean, I think in the story, in the video about it, the Texas guy that found it and gave it to the head coach, I think it was Tom Herman was the quarterback at Texas then. And he was like, we just assumed that it was the real one because the alternative that someone would go that length to make the fake one was just so outlandish. But that's actually what happened. And after, obviously Oklahoma got, fooled them, they figured it out and stopped using it. But that's my favorite Mike Leach story. That's just hilarious. And it's just something that I feel like I would do as a coach to just get the edge, So, all-time moment there.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
All-time. It was just like all these NFL coaches, college coaches, they're just so uptight all the time about media pressers. And that's honestly why Nick Saban is my favorite college coach. I love his media tirades and media rants, but Mike Leach was the total opposite. He's ready to get in front of the microphone and just talk about random shit. In comparison to all these other coaches, he didn't take it seemed like as serious, but he still loved football. He really was just a football guy. And I saw a thing, he was like, he got his degree. He became a lawyer and got his master's degree. Didn't spend a single second in a courtroom. He just took up his love for football and became a coach, completely disregarding his career. And that's just a football guy move. So, ultimate football guy, and it's incredibly sad. It's nowhere near on the same level as Kobe in terms of how shocking Kobe's death was. But it kind of hit me the same way because I'm just, football is what I watch so much. And not even Mike Leach not even being on the sidelines for the ReliaQuest Bowl is just so surreal. He was just there. It's one thing if he was to retire and then he's away from the game, but for him to just be, he's dead. He's gone completely. Yeah. So it is just so surreal. And like Luke just said, say you love your loved ones and, you got to enjoy every moment because you never know, but just really sad football guy passing.
Yeah, for sure. And that surreal thing, that's what's getting me is the fact that they're playing a bowl game in a few weeks and he's just not going to be there. And that's just weird. Mm-hmm. That's just weird to me. I can't accept that. So, and it's not like he's choosing not to be there. He's he's not even there, like in the stadium at all. Like that's just
he's just gone.
Surreal. So
it's like he just deserted, and that's how it was for Kobe too. Like it honestly took me like probably 2 full years. And sometimes I still do this. Like when I see videos of Kobe and stuff like that, the first thing you think of isn't that he's dead, you just don't even process that because it's just so wild. A legend like that, you just expect them to still be out there, doing what they do. But yeah, so he's just another one of those.
And the fact that like LeBron literally passed him like in the all-time scoring list like just a few days before he died, and like people were talking about that, and he was like giving LeBron the shout out and stuff. And then just that really made it worse. But
yeah.
Anyways, that was the one question that we had. Very important question. Props to me for giving the very important question, but I was very disappointed. We didn't have any questions on the Twitter or Instagram this week, but we have been doing it for a few weeks now, so I guess it kind of makes sense. So they're going to run out. And my stardom is, let me find it. I just exited out. Cam, go first. I lost mine. I gotta find it.
Okay. My stardom, Luke. My stardom is the troops. For the first time in 15 years, the over hit in the annual Army-Navy game, and Luke, the score was 20-17, but that was the over. So, but yeah, my stardom is the troops. I can't believe overs are that low for a game like that, but it really is. It's so funny.
I saw a stat for like the under had hit for like 15 consecutive years or something like that.
Yeah,
like it's so consistently hit that the over under is like 30 now. That's like the line on it.
Yeah, I mean the under is free money for the past 15 years until this year, and it's not like it was like a shootout. But you know what, Luke? Another funny tidbit about this game. A double overtime game to get to
the funny part is
it
was tied 10-10 at the end of regulation.
But it was nice. There was a nice passing touchdown from Navy in one of the overtimes. Also, this is another good thing here about starting the troops is their uniforms for this game every year are just brilliant. They're so beautiful. Every single year they have cool new uniforms. I look forward to their uniform reveals every year. So yeah, that was nice. I wish Navy would have won. Navy family here. But yeah, still a good game. Didn't get to watch much of it because I was at Mizzou Arena watching them get pummeled by Kansas, but that's another story. My sit-em is the McDonald's in Washington, Luke. The McDonald's in Washington. I went inside that McDonald's for the first time since it's been redone. I've always been a drive-through guy, and I usually always go to the McDonald's in Union. Bad vibes on the inside, Luke. They have these giant kiosks that you order your food on, and you really don't know when it's coming out. It's just a matter of waiting. And then once you sit down, weird people in the McDonald's, Ron. Weird people in the McDonald's. So I'm just sitting at McDonald's, and I've been to some other McDonald's on the inside. It is. I haven't gotten that bad of vibes, but that McDonald's on the inside, I'm not going back inside, Luke. And I went inside because the line for the drive-thru was wrapped around the building. And back in the day, Luke, the faster way, if the line was wrapped around the building, was going inside. But now they have these weird electronic kiosks that they expect you to order from, so it's not even faster whatsoever. And I was there way longer than I should have been, and I ended up eating inside because I was in there so long. I just didn't feel like walking back out to the car after standing there for so long. So, moral of the story, McDonald's in Washington, just wait out the drive-through line if you have to. Don't go inside. Bad vibes from the inside.
I think the moral of the story is that just if you're in a time crunch, drive-through is always the fastest way in like every scenario.
But like I said, this was the first time I had been inside of this McDonald's since it had been redone. It was redone years ago, but I just recently, like this year, started going back to McDonald's, locally at least, and I can't say I'm ever going to go back inside of that McDonald's willingly. So I'm sitting at McDonald's in Washington, at least the inside. And my sleeper is sneaky bowl games during the bowl season, Luke. Just random games that will sneak up on us and happen at random points during the day. And you just really have to be on your toes for bowl season. Like tomorrow, I'm pretty sure the first bowl is at like 11:30, which I'll be at work, but that is a weird time for a bowl game on a Friday. And it's like that the rest of the bowl season. So you just have to beware for sneaky bowl games.
It's UAB versus, is it Miami of Ohio in the Bahamas Bowl?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And then it's Bahamas UTSA Bowl. And Troy in the Cure Bowl. That's a good game. Cure Bowl. That'll be a fun one. Tune into the Cure Bowl if you can. 2 p.m. You got two good teams playing.
Who's
you laughing at me? They're both ranked though. So
Troy and who? UMass?
Troy.
No, not Troy and who?
UTSA.
Oh yeah, I like the
UTSA,
Roadrunners.
Texas San Antonio.
I don't know much about the Fun Belt Troy team. They're like one of the few teams that I never saw play really in the Fun Belt this year, but
they've won a lot though this year.
Okay. One interesting fact about the Bahamas Stadium, I've seen it with my own eyes when I went to NASA. Kind of just a rinky-dink field, but I guess that's for soccer. So,
that made me think about another game, the Fenway Bowl. That is
beautiful, beautiful setup for the Fenway Bowl. Just
taking place
absolute
in Boston,
easy
Fenway
on
Park.
the eyes. A sight for sore eyes is the Fenway Bowl.
Yeah, that's gonna be. There's one sideline. They had to like extend the right field fence like 20 yards out. It's so cramped in there. It's gonna be an ugly game, but so
I think it's like the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. It's not even interesting name for the. I don't know what Wasabi's connection is to the Red Sox, but so yeah, sneaky bowl games. Were you able to find your stuff?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
All right. So my stardom is it's a funny one. The Cardinals play-by-play spot, because it is now open. The Cardinals have a huge opening there. They've officially let go of Dan McLaughlin today. They called it a mutual decision, which I think we all know they pretty much just fired him.
I would say that's
why
fake.
Why would they want to get rid of him? Why would Dan McLaughlin want to leave and stuff like that? It's obviously has to do with, I don't know if we talked about this on the last show, but he did get arrested for his third DUI ever. So, I mean, I think the third DUI means that it's a felony. So it's a tough scene. You know, it's been like 10, 11 years since he's gotten one. He's done a lot of work. He's done a lot of work since then. He's it's a terrible sound. He's to get back, and it's just sad to see this happen. But yeah, the stardom, because it's an open position. So the Cardinals are going after a lot of free agents, obviously, but now they're gonna have to take a look at the free agent market for broadcasters. So I don't know. Joe Buck's name's been thrown out there. I've heard that. I've heard Am Singer. No, I'm just kidding. Those. I think the realistic option is they'll probably go with Ricky Horton for this next year, and then they'll just do like a year-long search for like the permanent guy. if I would imagine. And to be honest, I wouldn't hate that. I don't mind Ricky Horton. He's got a good voice. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of stupid things, like some other guys. Mr. Jim.
Yeah.
But
honestly, we could have used this as a fantasy corner question. Ron Milheiser said, could Tom Brenneman be the next Cardinals announcer? Personally, I don't think he could.
Absolutely not. That is almost worse than bringing back the guy with 3 DUIs. But he does pride himself and think of himself as a man of faith. So
that's true.
And
he
also doesn't know if he's going to be putting on the headset again. So
and we're in St. Louis and not Kansas City, so as a man of faith, he wouldn't have anything to worry about. So he would be fine.
Wow, that's a wild take. Tom Brenneman. Okay. And then my sit-em is the NFL Christmas Day schedule. Oh boy, where do I even start with this? So obviously this week we start with the Saturday games. We'll get into that with the predictions. But next week, all the games are on Saturday. Like the usual Sunday slate is going to be on Christmas Eve on Saturday. And then they just have like a special few games on Sunday. Here's the schedule. So we start off with Packers-Dolphins, which isn't a horrible game because if the Packers win this week, those are 2 games. That's a playoff implications game. The Dolphins have been a fun, exciting team, and who knows what the Packers could be. But that's still kind of mid. You're like, okay, we're starting off with that. That's fine. Then we have Broncos-Rams. I can't even say words. Those are they're 2 of the 4 worst teams in the league. 4-9 versus 3-10 in prime time on Christmas Day. That game is going to set the sport back years. All the progress that the NFL has made in the last 10 years set back by that game alone. It's ruining the sport for everyone, that game. And then we finish with which at the beginning of the year, I'll give the NFL this. The Buccaneers-Cardinals at the beginning of the year looked like a really good game. It looked like a really fun game in the nightcap, but Buccaneers-Cardinals, man, that's an ugly game, especially without Kyler, because at least he would make the game fun to watch, him running around like a toddler on the field. But without him doing that, this game is that's just a sad game. It's a sad game. And the whole slate is just miserable. And it's just a tough scene. So sit that for sure. It had so much potential, and now it's gone.
One thing I will say, Luke, about that slate is that is a slate that if you have a family, have a wife or a girlfriend, that's a slate you can be like, yeah, hon, football's on tonight, but we don't have to watch it. Yeah, it's like the Bills and the Chiefs again, but we don't have to watch it. We can watch whatever you want to watch tonight.
No. Just say this. Just say, oh, it's the reigning Super Bowl champions versus Mr. Unlimited. But you know what? We don't have to watch that game.
No, we don't have to.
I'm fine
tonight,
skipping it.
Let's do whatever you want to do tonight. So really,
you got to talk it up, make it sound like a good game.
Props to the NFL for giving that to families across the United States, that ability. Now, personally, as a sicko, I will probably be watching those games, Luke. I'm going to say it. I will definitely be watching.
I'll watch the Packers one.
And
I will most definitely not be watching the Broncos Rams. Not a second of it. I do not want to put myself through that.
That's like the Baker Mayfield wins on Monday night, you can guarantee I will be watching the Rams play Mr. Unlimited on Christmas. One of my favorite football memories actually is a Christmas game when Antonio Brown reached across the goal line against the Ravens to seal the deal. But yeah, bad slate of games, but you have to also remember that they planned this before the beginning of the season. So this really should have been incredible games when you think about it. I mean, Packers on Christmas Day, that's supposed to be awesome. Tom Brady versus the up and coming Cardinals on Christmas Day. Reigning Super Bowl champs versus Mr. Unlimited on Super Bowl day. That should have been good, but it's just not. That's just how the NFL's been this year. So,
yeah, pretty much. So definitely sit that slate. And then my sleeper is the Arizona Diamondbacks, because I didn't realize that a lot of people around the baseball world don't realize that the Diamondbacks are actually good. Like, we kind of saw it at the end of the year this year, where they kind of made a push at the end of the year. They were winning some games. They're playing fun baseball. They have the best pitching coach in the game, and Brent Strom. Obviously, Mark Pryor is a really good one for the Dodgers, but Brent Strom is the best pitching coach in the game. He just elevates pitching staffs, and we saw it starting to work in the Diamondbacks this past year, but this next year they're going to be even better. They got a lot of prospects coming up, and I made a take on Twitter the other day that I thought they might be better than the Dodgers next year, which I'm not going to say that yet officially, but I would not be surprised if that happens. So that's my sleeper. Is I know a lot of people are sleeping on them. They're going to be good next year. They're going to be in the playoff race, and I'm not going to guarantee it, but my prediction, they'll make the playoffs. They're a playoff team next year.
yeah, I saw that on Twitter a couple of times. People talking about the Diamondbacks here in December, which is wild for how they've been lately. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That's an interesting sleeper for December, especially.
Yeah. Like I said, it just got brought up this week, and that's just what I thought of. So that's going to wrap up the fantasy corner. A little bit of a shorter fantasy corner this week. Obviously, not a lot of questions, but now we'll go into the pick'ems, and it is my week to pick. So I'll run through them as quick as I can. We're already an hour and 15 minutes in, but as we're sitting here right now, we have 25 minutes until game time of Thursday Night Football, until week 15 officially kicks off between the 49ers and Seahawks. And as a Packers fan, I desperately need a 49ers win here. So historically, we don't like the 49ers fans, but because of that,
you bleed red and gold tonight.
You're right. And they just match up well. I think the Seahawks are they're hitting a rough spot right now. They just lost to the Panthers. I forget who they lost to the week before. I want to say the Jets, maybe.
Raiders won in overtime.
That was only 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because that was a big fiasco, because Scott Hansen sent us to 60 minutes when they were just talking about a dog instead of sending us to the overtime game. Not his fault, but I did have to illegally stream the end of that game, so that's on the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. And also last week they had a great get right game with the Panthers with turf dying. You're like, okay, turf, that'll give the spark to their team, and obviously didn't. So I think they're just they're a little bit dead right now. They might revive themselves at the end of the year, but right now it's 49ers. I do expect a close game, though. That's one thing the Seahawks will give you, is a close game. And the next, we have a Saturday slate, the early one. We have Indianapolis at Minnesota. This is self-explanatory. This is Minnesota. It may not be a dominant team, but Indianapolis is a dumpster fire. Baltimore at Cleveland is the 3:30 game. This is a fun one. There's a lot of injury question marks with this one. The Ravens' defense has been playing really good.
Lights out.
I think this is where Deshaun Watson comes back. And this is like the, hey, hello, I'm back moment for Deshaun Watson. I hope so, because I'm starting him in my fantasy league this week in the playoffs. So really hoping so. But my pick's Cleveland. Do you have any thoughts on it? Do you want to veto it? I'll put a clause. If Lamar Jackson plays, I will switch to Baltimore just because he's Lamar. But if he doesn't
out.
play,
He's
no matter
out.
if it's Anthony Brown, he's out.
He's out.
He is officially.
Yep.
Then it's Cleveland.
You know what, Luke?
Give me the dog pound.
Oh God, I was about to say something representing Believe land, but no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to veto it, but I will not support the Browns this year.
You're typing in the wrong team there too.
Oh shit. Yeah. Because I hate the Browns.
Then
sorry.
The nightcap, Miami at Buffalo. Now this is it's a great nightcap for the Saturday slate. And it's Buffalo. I said it earlier. Buffalo's kind of hitting their stride right now.
Well,
kind of starting to get together. Well, they've had some bad weather games, and also,
well, they're a bad weather team, aren't they?
Exactly. Miami is not. Miami is absolutely not a bad weather team. What do you think of
they play in rain.
Running the ball? Miami cannot run the ball. Buffalo can't really that well either, but they do it better than Miami, especially at the quarterback position. So it's Buffalo. And then Sunday slate, we have Philadelphia at Chicago. Something tells me to pick the Bears. This might be a trap game, but there's absolutely no way I can do that. That would be so stupid. It would look incredibly smart if it happened, but can you imagine if I pick the Bears and the Eagles just blow them out? How stupid I would look. So,
well, another thing to keep in mind, Luke, you know how we always end up looking at our graphic once it comes out on Sunday morning, and we're like, oh shit, we didn't take a single road team. This is your chance to take a road team, so to get some diversity on the graphic. So personally, we
did that with the Eagles. Yeah, we did that with the Eagles last week and it worked. So let's just roll with it. And plus, if we pick Philadelphia every single game this year, they've only let us down once. So it's a pretty safe strategy.
No.
Atlanta at New Orleans.
We picked the Colts against them one week, and we were almost right.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, if we were to pick the Eagles every week, though.
Oh, yeah, true.
Atlanta at New Orleans. This is Desmond Ritter's season. Desmond Ridder breakout game against the Saints.
Great defense, by the way.
Yeah, I don't like this pick because, like you said, with the Atlanta not being able to win thing, but they got to fight. I think they will. They'll fight to stay in the playoffs here. And Desmond Ridder, man.
Hey,
you can veto that if you want. I actually am not confident in that at all. But
who'd you take? Who are you taking?
Falcons.
Okay. I will never. I'll never veto a game that involves New Orleans until they play Jameis. I hate the Saints now. They are on the shit list, honestly, Luke. I mean,
they should. I hate them too.
I get Jameis did not have a great start to the season, but what in the world do you see from the Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, that has allowed we've got to keep playing him? I don't know if it's Jameis's injury that they're just trying to protect him, but I think he wants to play and he practices, and practices can be just as brutal. So I don't get it.
The only logical explanation that I can think of is that Andy Dalton has some type of dirt on Dennis Allen. That's the only thing. There's no other, unless Dennis Allen's just an idiot. That's another explanation too, which could very well be true.
I mean, he is a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah. So he might just be an offensive idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what? For that reason, I'm firmly believing in Atlanta now. Plus Arthur Smith. I like Arthur Smith too. Detroit at the Jets. I know we just I know we just talked about the Lions being really good and playing really well. This is a trap game. They're finally starting to get some national attention. The Jets, they're spiraling. I'm taking the Jets. If you want to veto, I will not veto back. I'm not that confident.
The problem
Wait,
is
who's
I'm
favorite?
not.
Let's see what Vegas has.
I'm not like a. I'm not a Mike White non-believer. I actually think he's competent. They have a great defense.
Vegas has the Jets -1.5.
I mean, it's strictly from their defense, I believe.
Yes.
I mean, they just held
And that's why
Buffalo to nada. I mean, who? I feel like we got to look at what are some good defenses that the Lions
breaking
have
news, breaking news, breaking news. We have breaking news, huge MLB news, unfortunate news for the Cardinals, but sources confirmed from Jeff Passan himself, the main guy in the MLB for reporting. Left-hander Carlos Rodon and the New York Yankees are in an agreement on a 6-year, $162 million contract. So, Rodon to the Yankees. How about that?
160, is that what you said?
162. So, I guess in honor of the MLB schedule.
Yeah, 162 games.
So,
well, that takes off a guy off the market after some speculation that the Cardinals might make a run at him. As soon as people online say that the Cardinals are going to make a run at somebody, you might as well mail it in that he's not a Cardinal. He's just not a Cardinal. But yeah, well, that does suck.
But good for the Yankees, though.
Shit.
So big news there.
I don't want to fall because I've been a big advocate of Detroit can't win close games. I'm not a big believer in Detroit,
but it's a fun pick. You want it? It's fun to pick Detroit.
It is fun, but
it's fun to pick them right now. But
it really only makes sense when they're at home. You know.
All right, we'll come back to it. Pittsburgh at Carolina. I alluded to this earlier. I think Kenny Pickett might be good, but if he's not playing, it's 100%.
He's not.
Is he?
He is
not. He's not playing.
He's had a second concussion within like 2 months. They're like, he's gonna have scatterbrain. So this might be the Mason Rudolph game.
Oh my God! Okay, give me Carolina by $1 million. If it's Mason Rudolph. Oh my God, I hate that guy. Dallas at Jacksonville. This is Dallas. This is another road team win. Jacksonville just had a big win. You know what Jacksonville famously does after big wins? They have a letdown loss. So, Arizona at Denver. Oh my God. That's an ugly game.
Also, we just picked Kansas City over Houston.
Oh, I skipped over that game. Yes, yeah, Kansas City over Houston. Yeah, that's obvious. I'm gonna come back to Arizona at Denver because it's just grossing me out right now. I'm about to puke looking at that game.
I think I'm gonna take Denver, but that is gross.
No, you know what? They did play good last week, and Arizona just lost Kyler for the year.
He has scatterbrain too. Although I don't know if
he doesn't have scatterbrain. He has no kneecaps. His knee is gone. So,
is Mr. Unlimited?
Yeah. Let's go with Denver. Denver's at home. Denver's due. They're due for a win.
Well,
they gotta win.
Their backup is Brett Rippon. Are they due?
Yes, they are due.
Okay. While you're looking at the next game, I'm gonna see if Russell Wilson's playing this week.
New England at Las Vegas. The Patriots who are hanging on and the Raiders who are dead. Once again, this is a scenario. How good is the Patriots run defense? NFL run defense rankings. Yeah. So the 49ers are obviously the best team. The Patriots are kind of towards the bottom. You know what? This is the Raiders.
I don't think it is. I'm going to veto that. I'm taking New England. So.
Oh, you know what? This is a revenge game too. Josh McDaniels.
I don't care. New England.
This, I like that veto though. I wasn't confident in the Raiders pick because this is a Nick Saban situation, like where Nick Saban's assistants can't beat him. It's like Bill Belichick's the master, so I like that. Tennessee at LA Chargers. This is a very, very interesting matchup, to say the least. But it's the Chargers. I hate the Titans right now. Mike Vrabel's a great coach, but they're not a good football team. Cincinnati at Tampa Bay. This is Cincinnati. Cincinnati. Give me the Reds. I mean the Bengals.
So true.
And then Sunday Night Football, Giants equal Washington. Is that because they tied the last time? Giants at Washington. This is the Commanders. This is the football team. Oh, this is the Dan Snyder led.
Yeah, and I've got something to make us feel even better about that pick, Luke. All burgundy this weekend for the very first time in football or Commander history. All burgundy. The burgundy hat on, burgundy jersey, burgundy pants. So, first time this year they're wearing all burgundy. That's never happened
before?
Not this year.
Oh, not this year. Okay.
Because they got new uniforms.
Yeah, I like that too. And then the Rams at Green Bay. This is Aaron Rodgers at home in primetime against a bad team. It's the Packers.
I don't disagree, but geez, I think this is going to be a disgusting, gross game. I think I said that earlier.
I agree. So we have 7 road teams this week. 9 home teams. That's a good balance.
Oh, it's a really good balance, but it's probably honestly too many when you think about it in terms of honestly, we've had a great season even when picking a lot of home teams. Some games that I'm really not too confident about. Arizona, Denver.
You can't be confident either way.
I just Brett Rippon. I don't know if I can trust that guy. What has he done?
Here's my thing with that game, Cam. Who cares? We're both eliminated from the playoffs. If we get the pick wrong, we get the pick wrong. Who cares? That's my opinion on it, truthfully. The game doesn't matter. I'm not going to watch a minute of it.
That is a game, Luke, that we may forget that it's going on. Like, they may not pan over to that game unless all the other games are in commercial break.
Yeah.
Because I just read a report. It looks like they're going to have to turn to Brett Rippon.
Oh, my God. Oh. Yeah, that makes the game even worse. Not having
Colt McCoy versus Brett Rippon.
Just simulate the game. Just simulate. Don't even play it. No one wants to watch that. Don't risk injury of those guys for that game. It's not worth it.
Also, this would have been a good Drew Lock game. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
This would have been a good Drew Lock game. A guy that he's going to throw 2 picks in this game, but he's going to launch one down the sideline to Judy. Probably hit Cortland Sutton on a play action over the middle. Yeah. Probably a 2-touchdown, 2-interception game from Drew Lock, but it would have been way better than what this is going to be. So,
yep. All right. So to recap, I mean, it's not bad when we pick that many road teams when we have the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Bengals like all on the road, and the Chiefs for that matter. Like all those teams are on the road, so that's a good time to pick a lot of road teams. So to recap, anyway, San Francisco, the game starts in 8 minutes. Minnesota, Cleveland, Buffalo for Saturday, and then Philadelphia, Atlanta, the Jets, Panthers, Cowboys, Chiefs, Broncos, Patriots, the veto pick, Chargers, Bengals, football team, and then Aaron Rodgers. That's our picks. And that is going to wrap up the show. Unless you have anything else to
add. If Detroit wins, do we just pick them in every game for the rest of the year? I feel like they might.
I'm down for that.
I mean, I don't want to handcuff ourselves, but if they win this one,
we'll leave the last week open. But for the following 2 weeks.
Yeah, we might have to trust them.
Yeah. Big game for them. All right. So we're at an hour 35. So once again, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week for the Christmas special episode. We'll have to discuss what we're doing for that. And everyone have a great weekend. See you guys.